water away. A hole in the bottom of it, it's got to be like one of the 2 or 3 worst places for the hole to be. Okay? And if my lawn is folding in on it, what's happening down below? I don't know how deep it's buried, but whatever's happening up in here, I now realized after I did that. And they told me to be, well, they said, this is, it's going to have to go to the back of the list because we got to, and I understand budgeting and all that kind of stuff goes in there. But I also point out, this isn't something that needs to be maintained. This is something that's broke. It's already, we know, causing a problem. Okay, so they came and they put like 4 wheelbarrows full of dirt. The next spring, that was gone. Okay, in another hole. So we know there's a lot of damage down there. Okay, but I said I don't see how we can let something like that's damaged go by. That should kind of be put. But then I thought, well, the next year will be what wasn't done one year is be the front of the list. Nothing happened the next year, and so my neighbor, I said, why don't you type in? Maybe they got something against me. Maybe they'll do it for you. And then we didn't hear anything. Okay, so now you understand the problem's been there for a while, and they know that there's a hole there, and they know the water isn't going where it's supposed to go. Where's it going? And so then my alderman came by with papers. He was going to run for re-election. I said, come take a look at the hole in my yard. And sure enough, there's a hole. So he got on the phone. And then, again, people came pretty prompt. However, it appears that was the first time that it was ever even thought about what they're going to do about it, 3 years into it. And they said, well, we have to do this. And, they're very precise about it. They went there. I mean, I got my excuse really promptly. And then nothing happened. And I don't hear anything. And we get to June 30th. I figure this is the middle of the construction season. Certainly, if anything was going to be done, something should have been in the line by now. So I called my alderman. And I said, I understand that the 4th of July is coming up and it's probably difficult, for the next week. But obviously, this is much after that. And nothing. And the thing is that I came to a meeting last night and I got the same excuse I got the year before. So I don't, do you change stories or, so now we got 4 years. So I don't think that needs to be in there because it's pretty clear we don't really do fix our storm sewers. So we can widen that up. There's a couple other things there that is knowledge, skills, and ability to remember. I suppose remember the story you're going to tell, but forget that there's actually a citizen that has a real problem. So maybe forget should be in there too. You should have probably some storytelling abilities. And maybe this nasty sense of humor so you can fit in with everybody else. I'm sure they're having a good time. Organizational core values, I wrote that bigger in case I was laughing when I read them. Professionalism, integrity, customer service, respect, teamwork. This one I see because you probably have to cooperate, keep your stories together. Accountability. All those I find kind of funny, probably shouldn't be in there. Widen the thing. Now, a couple other things related to this. Assessing, when I was on this committee, we dealt with assessors and stuff like that. Shouldn't there be some sort of thing if the value of my house and my neighbor's house isn't really what it should be when you have a hole that you cannot fix and is constantly increasing hole. You can't sell a house like that for anywhere near the price. And should we really be assessed as if there wasn't a great big unfixable hole, at least unfixable by us there? I just feel in the last 4 years, my property taxes certainly haven't fixed the problem, but also it seems to me that I'm paying too high a price because my house and my value of my house, how can I sell a house with a great big hole? I know, talk to some realtors, see how easy that would be to do. And then there's the issue of insurance. We also dealt with insurance when I was on this committee. Liability insurance. If something's intentionally done, does the liability insurance cover us? Okay, cover what the city does. Because something that's not done for 4 years and didn't even sound like any thing at all had been done till the 3rd year. And then it was, like I say, this story and then the same story I'm getting this year. So there's a question about that. And then how long does somebody want to carry you? There's all these natural disasters going on all around the country. Paying attention to the news and rainstorms and all this stuff coming along. And those things don't get stopped. And the only thing I've ever been asked is a ditch flooded? Well, if the ditch gets flooded, that means the entire system has failed. And we know the system is broken and it's not being fixed. And what I'm also hearing is that people all around the nation in different places are getting their insurance dropped. Insurance companies are dropping them because of things that are happening, you know, from the environment and such. So could that happen to the citizens of Marshfield when insurance companies find out that, well, broken storm sewers aren't being fixed? Just some things to think about.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? I see none. The consent agenda. The minutes from the June 20th, 23 meeting, bills and payroll, monthly position control report on personnel actions. Motion by Mr. Wagner, second by Ms. Tompkins. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. And we can skip over number 5. Number 6, request to recommend city council approval to refill vacant part-time library specialist, youth service position, presented by Jill Porter, library director.
Thank you and good evening. I hate to, when we lose someone after 23 years, but we are losing David Baker, who has worked both in the circulation department and for the past number of years in the youth services department. He's an all-around super helper, one that we can pretty much stick in any department when we need him, and he will be greatly missed, but we do need to replace him as he will be retiring on August 18th. And it is our hope to add 4 hours to Sarah Bartkowiak's current schedule. She's scheduled at 24 hours. We'd like to move her to 32 hours and then seek someone to fill the remaining 16 hours that David is currently allotted so that we can retain someone who has skills in developing programs that are STEM and STEAM oriented, which is another thing that David did. This position is currently budgeted for and is budgeted for next year. And so with that, I would seek your approval to post this position and reach out and try as soon as possible to find someone.
Motion by Ms. Tompkins, second by Mr. Wagner. What am I?
Question?
Oh. Any questions, comments?
I just have a comment to say that he is an excellent employee, and I have gone in there with my daughter, and he's just, his enthusiasm for books is crazy. He could sell any book to anybody.
So, he could, and I think he has.
So please tell him that, yes, he will be sorely missed by the public, but also Sarah has great customer service as well. So that's fantastic.
Thank you. It's good to hear.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Tompkins and a second by Mr. Wagner. All in favor? Aye. And that passes. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Number 7, request to recommend council approval to refill vacant equipment operator 1 position, street, presented by Chris Howley, street superintendent.
Good evening, everybody. As much as I love to come and present to you all the last several years, I was kind of hoping to avoid this last request to refill a position, but it was unavoidable. Kyle Parks, his last day with us was on July 7th. He actually started employment with us at Street Division on April 23rd of 2021. He was a great kid. He generated a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and he'll be greatly missed. We wish Kyle the best. He's headed over to Clark County Highway Department. And with that, I would recommend the Finance Budget Personnel Committee authorize the Street Division to fill the vacancy of equipment operator 2 internally and authorize advertisement for the operator 1 position immediately.
Motion by Mr. Wagner, second by Ms. Tompkins. Any questions or comments? I see none. All in favor? Aye. And that passes.
Thank you all
sir.
for one last time.
Number 8, request to recommend council's approval to execute a contract for services to establish a street light user charge, presented by Jennifer Solinsky, Finance Director.
Good evening. About this time last year, as we were looking for new sources of revenue, it has been recommended that we begin to charge for covering the cost of street lighting. During the budget of 2023, we included approximately $225,000 worth of expenditures and a portion of that to be recovered through implementing a charge for street lighting. Excuse me. Making the change would require adopting an ordinance to establish rates charged based on different types of property. And working through the details of this method requires professional assistance. And so we have included a contract for the services of Ellers for your review and consideration. As part of the process to move forward with charging for street lighting, there's two phases outlined in the contract. First phase is information gathering. Second phase is implementation. Ellers has suggested that the cost of services would not exceed $4,500. And so with that, I recommend committee approval and recommendation to council to allow this city administrator to execute this contract with Ellers.
What's your pleasure? Motion by Ms. Tompkins to approve. Second by Mr. Wagner. Any questions or comments? Mr. Wagner.
Your microphone isn't on?
Okay, not gonna take responsibility. As I understand this is supposed to be like revenue neutral to the homeowner. Is that, and when I say that, I mean, basically, there's some formula is gonna be worked out for what the charges will be, and this is gonna be added on to the tax bill, if I correct?
And no, we are exploring options to include this on the utility bill, much like the fire protection charge is included on the
Is that a
water.
once-a-year billing or?
That would be part of the information gathering for the model to determine if that's a once-a-year billing or a monthly charge, much like that fire protection charge.
And do you have any ideas, in your work on it so far, do you have any ideas how much this would be added to the utility bill?
A rough estimate would be less than $40 annually.
Less than $40 annually. So do we know how many billable people we have for that?
That is all part of the phase one of the project, is determining who to bill and how to establish a rate based on a billing, whether it's a residential or a commercial property.
So we can't tell, once this hits the newspapers or the cable TV or whatever, and the constituents start coming up to us and saying, well, how much did you raise it by my bill by? We don't know.
Not at this point. That's part of,
Would it be better if we waited to approve this until you had better study and research?
well, the study is being conducted by Ellers.
By
Not staff.
by Ellers.
Correct, not by staff.
I-
That is what the contract is for, is to cover.
I'm tempted to make a move to table this until Ellers has the final numbers in it. But how long do you think it would take for us to get those numbers?
They won't begin work on investigating that until we execute a contract.
And the cost of the contract is 45, not to exceed.
Not to exceed, it's being billed hourly.
Right.
Correct.
So. And is the electric or utility involved in this in any way?
They will be, as far as
Putting it on the light bill?
putting it on the electric bill, correct.
And are they do we know if they're gonna collect a fee for that?
At this initial conversations has suggested that they would include that, and it would just be part of their normal billing and collection process, with the money then remitted to the city, much like they do for us for the sewer utility.
Well, I'm gonna vote no on it until you have the numbers, so thank you for your help, though.
Ms. Tompkins.
Okay, I have a clarification question, then another question. So is this motion is to approve us actually starting a study so that we do have the numbers?
Correct. It would be establishing a pricing model in order to then include on the bill. The final model would need to be
Okay.
through a resolution or an ordinance.
An ordinance,
So
okay.
that the rates are published.
Right, so we need that
So
information.
The end result of this is not going to be an ordinance then, right?
Not tonight. I mean, should we determine to move forward, then we would be bringing an ordinance forward with the actual rates published within that ordinance.
And then my second question is, so we put this, I remember in the budget, did we have like 170,000 last year or
Roughly.
something? That was already put on utility bills. So is this just, is that right? Did
It
it?
was not put on utility
Oh.
bills. It was entered as estimated revenue to be collected in 2023. So, you know, should we not decide not to pursue this revenue source, then that would be a gap in our budget.
I thought it had already been put
We
on it.
we have not charged any residents for this.
Mr. Wagner.
Yeah, thank you. When I meant revenue neutral, okay, we're paying for the lighting now. And about
Correct.
225,000 a year. Is
Correct.
that what we're paying for it now? So we're gonna be displacing something that we already charged for, that we charge for. We collect penny for penny of that.
We do not currently recover any cost for the street lighting that the
Okay,
city
but
pays for.
but the homeowner, property taxpayer is going to, somehow or another, we're paying the utility that 225,000. Right. Okay, so now we're gonna be collecting it and the money's gonna go to the city. It's gonna be collected on the light bill, either monthly or annually.
Correct.
And then it's going to come back to the city. And are we gonna be reducing our expenditures by that amount?
The expenditures will always remain the same. We're always going to have to pay
All of the
the
225?
utility for the cost of those street lightings. And then where this comes into play is a revenue source that we currently don't have. So
But we're already collecting it, we're through the property tax as a service we're providing and paying for. We're already paying that now.
well, if we look at the general funds
The homeowner's
budget
already paying
of
it now.
roughly, you know, over $20 million, the general funds revenue from property taxes
About 1%.
are less than 11 million. So there's a gap in what the property taxpayer pays versus from property taxes, the revenue that the city gets is less than our expenditure. So, you know, if we don't pursue this additional revenue, there will become a need to cut expenditures elsewhere.
That doesn't make sense. Already.
In our budget, we balanced the budget this year by including $170,000-ish worth of revenue. If we now do not generate that revenue, our fund balance could potentially decrease by that $170,000 that we did not collect in revenue.
But it's big, yeah, we're paying the utility that money though.
Either way, we pay the utility for the cost of street lighting.
So, you guys, okay. I was under the understanding that when we did do the budget, that this was already done and in place. From now, what you're telling me now, it's not. I guess I never really looked at my utility bill to see if I was getting charged for street lighting. So, for number two, is Eiler's gonna be using city data for where the lights are located? Are they gonna be using utility data for the customers that have the lights?
So these
Or
are not.
how are they going to come up with this? Because if they're gonna use the data that we have, why would we pay them to use our data that we could compile ourselves?
So these are, and perhaps I might fall on the Director of
Sure.
Public Works. These are not streetlights, throughout town. I believe these are located elsewhere.
Not the traffic signals, these are the actual streetlights on the corner that light up the corner intersections. And we do have a count on all those. We get billed a flat rate from the utility on a regular, annual basis or monthly basis for streetlights.
Okay, so then how are we going to pass that off to each individual parcel owner of a property?
That is where we will engage Ellers to help us determine how that is done. There are a couple of different methods that they have used in the past. It could be a flat charge with a charge per footage of frontage on non-residential, or they could do a simplified charge for residential with a multiplier for non. So it's a matter of, they would be helping us identify who and how to charge.
Based on our information and data that we have on the citizens of Marshfield by our maps, correct?
Presumably. I'm not exactly sure how they exactly go about that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
thank you. You are forecasting that would be, there's $170,000 that we would have a hole that we'd have to fill. Does that take into consideration even the notification that we're going to be receiving $1,030,000 more in state revenue?
No, at the time when we made the estimate of the anticipated implementation, that was unknown data. We had no idea that we were going to be getting additional revenue.
So we could keep things as they are now and not have $170,000 debt or hole in the budget?
For
Maybe.
2023, the hole is going to exist. For 2024, potentially not, because we balanced the budget anticipating this revenue.
You balanced it for 2024 already.
For 2023?
2023.
For 2023. As the revenue portion of the 2024 budget is still in progress. Just beginning.
Yeah, this was added onto the budget on 2023 as a streetlight utility fund. Somewhat, correct?
Yes.
So
And that was used in 2023's budget.
I don't see how. I'm trying to figure out how the homeowner, taxpayer, is going to say, you've assessed me this much, you've assessed me so many mills already, and now you're gonna add on a flat fee or a calculated fee of some sort or another to pay for the street light that I may or may not have in front of my house. How can I tell them that's not an increase in taxes, in their taxable amount?
It's not an increase in property tax, it's an increase, it's a separate charge.
It is a separate charge, but they don't see it that way. They see it as, this is another tax I'm paying, just like the charge for the sewer line, which is the same way, it is done the same way you're proposing to doing this, right?
Excuse me, Mr. Turchi?
For example, it's not that you have an individual streetlight over your home. It's
know.
the intersections benefit you because you have a light and it makes it safer for that intersection. So you benefit from using the streets in the city, you benefit from using all the lights in the city. It's not a specific light or a
So
specific.
it's once or twice removed from an actual one-on-one benefit.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm gonna really enjoy that.
Okay, our motion was to, Ms. Tompkins.
So I hear that the worry is that this will be perceived as an increase in taxes. I think we need to also realize, like, this year, we're gonna increase our taxes by 70,000 spread out over 19,000 people. Is that about right? And off the top of my head, I don't know how much that would be per household, but, it's not keeping up with the rate of inflation. So I think that we need to realize that the cost of everything goes up. And if taxes can only go up so high and all the services go up, then we either lower services or we find other ways to pay for things. So, I mean, yes, people don't like that, but we also like our service. So I just think it's just one way that we try to find revenues so that we can stay solvent.
I'm gonna have Jessica read the motion one more time.
You have a motion and a second to recommend council approval of giving permission to staff to execute a contract for services to establish a streetlight user charge with Ellers.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No,
Passes 2-1. Suggested items for future agendas. Do we have any?
no.
No? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Wagner,
So moved.
Ms. Tompkins, second. We are adjourned.